So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Welcome back here, BSN Network. This is BSN Network Podcast here today. It is Friday, June 25th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Friday, June 25th here today, coming off of a big night yesterday, a pretty relatively big day yesterday in New York sports, but around sports, it was a big night. Last night, the New York Yankees get the day game win against the Kansas City Royals. They win 8-1. Their bats came alive. They were dominant. 13 hits, 8 runs. Just absolute dominance from the New York Yankees. Aaron Judge with a huge game. He had 3 hits and 2 walks. He was on base all 5 times he was up. Stan had a big game. He had a 3-hit game. Gary Sanchez continues his hot streak as he gets yet another home run, and Judge also had a home run to start things off. So right now the Yankees bats are coming alive. Voit also had a home run. I mean, the bats are coming alive. The emotion in the dugout is coming alive. The team's starting to heat up. You could tell that finally this is the New York Yankees we expect to see. This is the New York Yankees that we sign up to watch, right? This is not the past couple weeks, at the beginning of the season, that was not the New York Yankees. And now that we're finally getting healthier, Voit has made a ginormous impact in the lineup since he's been back. His 3 games back, he's had 2 home runs, he's had a triple, and he's had a walk-off hit, obviously, on that on Wednesday night against the Royals, right? So you look at that, I mean, he has been so good since he's come off the IL. He continued to hit well yesterday. He added on with another home run. And Judge is, he was going through a little bit of a cold stretch there, but, I mean, Judge has had a good season all along. I mean, Judge is going to make the All-Star game. He's had an amazing season. He's been arguably the Yankees' best hitter all year, and you continue to look at, what the Yankees are doing, and it's just hitting, and it's hitting, and Tyone pitched very good yesterday, and it's very exciting as a Yankee fan that we are finally getting it right. We are finally doing well. We're finally, playing well. Don't make no mistake. I still want Cashman out of here. I do not, just because we're playing well, I still want Cashman out of here. But we're finally playing well. We're finally playing good baseball, and I'm very happy about that. So the Yankees got the win yesterday. Canadiens move on to the Stanley Cup. Islanders, Lightning, Game 7 tonight. They say it's the 2 best words in sports, Game 7. So tonight, Game 7 should be exciting. I'm ready for it. We'll get you all ready for the weekend in sports ahead of us. Yankees today start up a big series against the Boston Red Sox, and that's big because, like I've been mentioning about 10 times in the past couple days here on the podcast, these next games are huge, right? We go 3 in Boston, which is a weekend series, so I'll talk about it on Monday. Obviously, with weekend series, I talk about all the games on Monday. Obviously, Friday, I don't do a pod on Saturday or Sunday, and then Sunday is another game. So, obviously, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is the weekend series. It's a weekend series in Boston, which is a great opportunity for the Yankees to even more give us, a reason to really cheer for them and give us more of a reason to really have hope. And you start off tonight with a big game tonight. You always want to take that first game of the series. The Yankees right now, obviously on a 2-game win streak. You really want to, like I've said, you want to win each series. So you take Game 1. It's a great opportunity to win at least one more of the next 2 games in the series. And obviously, then after the Boston series, you go back home for 7 games. You have 4 against LA, and then you open up a next weekend. This time next weekend, we'll be talking about the Yankees-Mets, and we will possibly be talking about a Garrett Cole-Jacob deGrom matchup, depending on if they do decide to pitch deGrom. There's a possibility they do. And we'll see how it all plays out. That would be a very exciting matchup. Cole, DeGrom would be super fun to watch. So, Yankees on today. Islanders on today. Mets have a doubleheader against the Phillies today. A 4 o'clock game, then a 7 o'clock game. So, they're still making up games that they missed in the beginning of the season due to rainouts and COVID and, weather and all that stuff. Mets have had a wild season. It continues to be wild. They had a day off yesterday. They'll get back on track today with a doubleheader. Yankees start up a 3-game set today against the Red Sox, and the Islanders play Game 7 against the Lightning. Simple as this. Win or go home for both sides. Not just the Islanders, not just the Lightning. It's win or go home. It's the two best words in sports. Game 7. And we'll see if the Islanders bring it. We'll see if the Lightning bring it. We'll see if it's a good game. Islanders have got to play good defense, and they've got to be aggressive. And that's what they were against the Lightning in Game 6. They were aggressive. They knew their backs were against the wall. Play that same way today, and they'll get the win. So these are the topics for today's podcast. As I mentioned in the open, Gary Sanchez continues to rake. He continues to dominate. He's on fire right now. He's just ridiculous right now. And obviously, for someone like me, who I've been very iffy on Gary Sanchez, I've been very down on him. I've not been very positive on Gary Sanchez, from these podcasts, and I'm sure many other Yankees fans are in the same boat of me. I got to give credit where credit's due right now. He is arguably the hottest hitter on the team. He's one of the hottest hitters in baseball right now, and there's no argument to that. His last 15 games, you look at the numbers, and I'll share you them in a little bit. His last 15 games have been wild. I figured, you know what, I'm going to continue to talk about it. Because, I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but right now he's hot. There's a chance he goes into this Red Sox series and does not get a hit. So let's talk about the Gary Sanchez streak right now while it's going on. And, the guy's just raking right now. And for being so bad at the beginning of the year to struggling and not being good at all. And, yet again, us Yankees fans going back to, who's our catcher for the future? And all of us were saying not Gary Sanchez. And now he's starting to pick up. Now he's starting to play. Not going to really say he's the catcher for the future because he's still got to do it for a full 162. He's had a couple good weeks here. I want to see him do it for a full 162. There's not 162 games remaining, but you get what I'm saying. Especially second half of the year. I was talking about yesterday to someone. I was talking yesterday to someone about it. We'll see how he goes in the second half of the season. After the All-Star break. That's big. That's big for the whole team. If you have a great second half of the year and the Yankees go on a roll, that's all people are going to remember. No one's going to remember your first half of the year. No one's going to remember anything about that. If you have a good second half of the season and you take that into the playoffs, that's all I care about. That's all mostly Yankees fans care about. No one's going to care about your stats in May if you're batting 400 in September. Am I right? So we'll see how it all plays out. But right now, he's on fire. We'll get into him. And like I mentioned, Canadiens move on. They head to the Stanley Cup. Just shocking. Shocking to say the least. Surprising. The Cinderella run continues for the Montreal Canadiens as they knocked off the Golden Knights yesterday in 6 games. They win the series 4-2, and they now move on to the Stanley Cup, and they await the winner of tonight's Game 7 between the Islanders and Lightning in Tampa Bay. That's a big game tonight, and obviously, like I mentioned, Canadiens... the Cinderella story. It is literally the Cinderella story. I just cannot believe how good it's been for them and how wild it's been, for a team that, went from, being, having to fight for a playoff spot, to be honest, for the final couple weeks of the season, getting in as a 4 seed, getting in as arguably, I think, the worst record-wise team in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They now move on, and they now go to the Stanley Cup, and that's big. It's wild. They're going to the Stanley Cup. Personally, it doesn't sound that big, but they're going to the Stanley Cup. That's wild. So I'll get into that. Then we'll finish off with the New York Sports Update, get you ready for the weekend. And obviously, big weekend ahead of us. Tonight's a big night. Yankees, Islanders, 2 games for the Mets. Then you head into the weekend. Yankees got 2 games in Boston. Depending on how, then the Mets got games. And you obviously, depending on how the Islanders do, the Islanders' winning ways will carry into the weekend. So I believe if the Islanders win today, I believe the first game of that series will probably be either Monday or Tuesday. So we'll see how all that plays out. But anyway, with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So the New York Yankees right now, not just Gary Sanchez, but the New York Yankees right now are absolutely on fire. And there's no other way to put it. There's no other way to say it. We have won, we're 7-2 in our last 9 games. We're rolling right now. We're playing good baseball. And, just as a team, and I mentioned this when I opened the podcast, right? At the beginning of the season, we all expected the New York Yankees to, be a top contending team. You look at their lineup, you look at their team top to bottom. You obviously Garrett Cole's coming back again, no surprise there, but you get Garrett Cole in a normal season. You added a little bit to your pitching rotation. There was no major moves, but it seemed like it might have been an upgrade because the guys that we've added, they've done some really phenomenal things in their career, but it's the question is can they do those things still? And that's Corey Kluber, and those are Jameson Taillon. And Taillon had a very good start. Yes, overall he's not been good, but his past 2 starts have been better, and you gotta hope that he continues to get better, and you gotta hope that you got to just hope that this is the sign of something positive things to come, because he's been simply terrible to start the year, but he's been better the last 2 games. And obviously, you look at the lineup too, and now that you get Luke Voit back, and everyone's fully healthy, and you got LeMahieu, Judge, Sanchez, Stanton, and Voit, the first 5 hitters, that is the ultimate challenge for opposing pitchers. That is the ultimate challenge right there is for opposing pitchers is the first 5 hitters of that lineup. And especially when you get to the Stantons, the Sanchez, and the Voits, your real big power hitters, the guys that if they have runners on base, they're going to make you count with the long ball, especially when you get to that. That's like the meaty part of the order. That's like the really strong, really quick, like really just good part of the order is the first 5 hitters. And we're finally seeing it come alive, right? For the first part of the season, it was Stanton, Judge, LeMahieu. The other guys weren't doing much at all. You had some games at the really start the season. You had Hicks mixed in there. Then you had Frazier mixed in there. Sanchez, when he was terrible, you had him mixed in there. Now that they're all finally hitting well and they're hitting consistently well, it is finally time to call that the bright side for the Yankees, but the dark part of the order for opposing teams, because that's the part of the order that you have no clue how in the world you're supposed to navigate around the Stanton, around LeMahieu, Judge, Sanchez, Stanton, Voit combination. How are you supposed to do that? And that order's become the so-called dark part of the order for opposing pitchers because of Gary Sanchez's recent success. And going into this season, right, there was high expectations for Gary Sanchez. I wouldn't even call them high expectations, but there was a high level of pressure. I reword that and say kind of a high level of pressure. Because he's coming off of last season, the worst year of his career. The lowest batting average he has ever had in his career with the New York Yankees. 147 he batted last season. He played 49 games. He batted 147 and only had 10 home runs. For a guy that's a power hitter, hits a lot of home runs, relies a lot on the home run, to only have 10 home runs is not much. Now, yes, it was the shortened 60 games. It was super weird. And Sanchez, too, he got benched for the playoffs. So Sanchez is a guy that you're talking about last season got benched for the playoffs. Going into this year, there was high level of pressure on him. They all said that he made changes. He made adjustments. That, he, went off in the offseason, played for an overseas league, I believe, back in the, either like a Mexican league or Dominican Republic league, or Dominican league, something like that. He played for one of those teams. He was hitting really well. He was doing really well over there. He adjusted a lot of his things. So going into this season, we all had very high expectations on Gary Sanchez. Not even high expectations, high pressure. Because he had to get it right this season. Right? If he doesn't get it right this season, you're talking about that's like 3 straight years in a row where he hasn't hit well. 4 straight. Because he batted 186 in 2018, 232 in 2019, which was better. He actually made the All-Star game that year. Then 147 in 2020. Then obviously go into 2021, it's a big year for him. And he started off the year relatively slow. Actually, on opening day, he had a home run. Then the second game, he had a home run. He started off like, wow, like this is the perfect thing that we can imagine. Like Gary Sanchez hitting home runs, this is what we expected. He started off relatively strong. Then everything kind of went downhill after that. And he ended up struggling. And he went back in that phase where Higashioka got his opportunity and Sanchez started to get benched again. And now Sanchez was able to work on some things. And now Sanchez is getting back on a roll. And this is sometimes how baseball is where it's streak. Baseball's a ton of streaks. And that's why when you talk about a streaky player in baseball, yes, it's true, but you could almost say that's like over 80% of the league. Each player is a streaky player. They'll go through stretches where they're really good. They'll go through stretches where they're really bad. That's baseball, right? Baseball is a game of failure. You're going to go through stretches where you're you're the best hitter in the league, and you're going to go through stretches where you're the worst hitter in the league. You're going to go through stretches where you're hitting very good in the lineup, and you're going to go through stretches where you're going to have maybe 7, 8, 9 games where you may only have 1 to 2 hits in your next 25, 26 at-bats. Right? That happens in baseball. That's all the time. That's why you don't see guys anymore. That's why it's so rare to see a guy hit up in the 300s, hit up in the 400s anymore, because it's streaky. You might be up in the 300s one week, the next week you might be down in the 270s, just because that's how baseball is. So Sanchez, he started off the season good for a couple of games, then he struggled and continued to struggle, and his struggles went throughout the rest of the month of April and into the month of May, and now in June, he's come out of it. He was in like a 2-month slump, and now he's come out of it in June, and he's hitting really well. And it's a very small adjustment by the hitting coach. A very small adjustment. And I don't know if you picked this up on TV. Right, but I don't know if you picked this up on TV or if you didn't, or if they were talking about it. I was watching the game yesterday. I don't remember if they ever talked about it, but I can notice it. You could pick it up on TV, definitely, if you watch the game. But it's sometimes hard throughout the season to make adjustments. It is. It's very hard to make an adjustment. Whether that's with your swing, whether that's with your stance, whether that's with your leg kick, whether that's with your finish, whether that's with your open or close, whether that's with your front foot. It's always hard to make an adjustment in the middle of the year. It's hard to make an adjustment, period, let alone in the middle of the MLB season. But Gary Sanchez was able to make an adjustment. And one of the adjustments, if you look at his swing from, at the beginning of the season, you look at his swing, or even last year if you look at his swing, he had this massive leg kick, and it was something that was such a big leg kick. It was like really, really big. He would his foot would be right here. He would take his foot and be all the way up and then swing. And that was causing a lot of issues. He would take this massive leg kick, then he would land, and he would be off balance. His hands would be stuck behind him. His head would be he would be lunging forward. His hands would drop, and he would pop everything up. He would swing under the high pitches, and he would chop some of the low pitches as well. And he was, having all these struggles where he just was not able to get any real solid contact. He was not able to hit good at all, period. And he was doing it the same thing this season a little bit as well with his leg kick. He changed it a little bit, went into the season. It was still relatively a big leg kick. And now they've really changed his leg kick. And it's a real simple change. And I've always said that. I've always said that in sports, right? Sometimes it's the really small changes that can make a world of difference. I said it with the Nets, right? For example, it was the small things in that game. It was the very simple things in that game that cost them Game 7 against the Bucks, right? Same thing with the Yankees and Gary Sanchez now. It's the littlest adjustment that's making him have people possibly debate whether he should be an all-star or not. It's making him it's making him the Yankees' hottest hitter right now. It's making him one of the hottest hitters in baseball. It's making him look like the Gary Sanchez of old when he first came up in the MLB and he was the best hitter on the Yankees. And that simple adjustment is very small leg kick. Really, it's not even a leg kick anymore. It's literally a tap. It's like, let's say this is his foot. He lifts it up and puts it back down. It's not even a leg kick anymore. It's really just a tap. He lifts it up a little bit and just drops it, and then he gets all of his power generated through his lower half, swings through every ball. And a pure example of that adjustment that was working yesterday was they gave him a high pitch in the zone. It was a borderline strike, borderline ball. But more than likely the umpire would probably give it to a pitcher. If you saw, they have the box. It was right in the middle of that line, on the top line of the box. It was a high pitch in the zone. Last season, he would have swung under that pitch. He either would have struck out, or it would have been a pop-up in the infielder to the catcher. Or he would have fouled the ball back, got another pitch, and ended up probably striking out because that's how he was last season. But instead, this year, yesterday's game, he took that pitch and he gave that pitch a ride into left field seats. And he hit a home run on that pitch. And that's a pure example of that little leg kick, that little tap, not even a leg kick, it's a tap that he's doing now, and he's adjusted it, and now he's taking pitches that are higher in the zone and hitting them far and hitting them gone. And that's a great example of something that's working, is when you see a pitch that you were not hitting last season, and now that you're hitting now, it's a big deal. It's a real big deal. And, you just got to hope that this continues, because if Gary Sanchez, continues to hit well and he continues to play well, that's what we need. I mean, this guy's got loads of talent. We've seen it. There's no doubt about it. I mean, when he came first up with the Yankees, he was taking the league by storm. Right? He's got loads of talent. There's no doubt about it. No one's doubting his talent. We're just doubting, in a way, some of his, his hustle in a way sometimes, his catching ability, his defense, his hitting recently. He's got talent. It's just sometimes you just got to make adjustments. That's what happens with players. Some players, that's the thing. Some players come up in the MLB and the major leagues, and they've got a ton of talent, but they just can't put it together. They've got a ton of talent. They've got so much talent, but their swing is off. They're just not able to fully catch up to MLB pitching. But it might be a small adjustment that fixes that, and their talent really gets fully exposed. That's what happened with Judge. In his first season, he batted, 179 when he came up. Right? He had talent. He showed it in the minor leagues. He showed the talent. He needed to make adjustments. He made an adjustment in that offseason, and look, he's one of the best players in baseball right now. So that's the thing with Sanchez here. Right? When he came up, he was great. He was doing great. Now he's been struggling. He made the adjustment, and now again, he's hitting like a monster, and he's dominating, and he's scary to opposing pitchers. And I said to someone the other day, right, when Sanchez used to get up, it would be like an automatic out. Now when he gets up, you actually have confidence that he's going to hit well. And does this take away the fact, and I don't know how I want to word this, because I know however I'm going to word this, someone's going to take it and run with it. So just listen to how I'm going to, say. I probably shouldn't even say this, because it's going to create, it's so easy to twist my words here. But does this eliminate the conversation that he is the Yankees' future catcher? I would tend to disagree, because I want to see him continue to hit well throughout the rest of the season. Right? This is a great 15-game stretch. I want to see him continue it. And really what's big, and I was talking about someone yesterday about this, is how he hits after the All-Star break. Because you also got to realize he's got a time in the All-Star break, too, to practice more. He's going to get more reps. He could come out of the All-Star break swinging, and he could come out of the All-Star break even better than now. He could come out of the All-Star break, and he could raise his batting average up to like 290 to end the year. But that's the big thing. Is yes, he's hitting very good now, and I'm happy. And I'm really excited. I do trust him now. But the real question is after the All-Star break, if he continues to hit well, and he pretty much single-handedly puts the Yankees on his back and leads them to the playoffs, that's when you got to say, you know what? We got somebody here. But if after the All-Star break, he continues to struggle or he's that's when you still go back to the drawing board. Right? He's not going to keep up what he's doing right now. I mean, I'm not trying to be negative, but that just happens, right? No one's going to be able to keep up the pace he's going on. He's batting like almost 400 in his last 15 games. He's hitting a home run almost every single game, it seems. No one's going to be able to keep that up. Nobody. The best of the best won't be able to keep that up. But if he can do anywhere near it, if he could start to really get consistent, right now his batting average is 240. If at the end of the year his batting average is about 275, 280 might be pushing a little bit, but if he gets his batting average up to about 275 to end out the year, and he ends out, how many home runs he's got now? Let's see here. He's got 13. He ends out the year on like 30 home runs. He ends out the year on about 25, 30 home runs, right? And he ends out the year on 25, 30 home runs, bats 275, drives in, maybe 70 RBIs or 60 RBIs. I think there's a chance that you go ahead and say, you know what, let's see what he does in the playoffs. And that does make up the argument of, he's going to have to catch Cole. But he's been hot. He's been the Yankees' hottest hitter, no doubt about it. And I'm happy about it. And his defense, he made some big defensive plays the other day. His defense is still a question mark, but hey, that just might be how he is. Some guys are like that. Some catchers out there are great at defense and stink at hitting. Some catchers are good at hitting and stink at defense. Some catchers, those are the best of the best, are good at both. Those are the guys like Salvador Perez and Yadier Molina and guys like that. Those guys are good at both. Some guys, even in the MLB, like Gleyber Torres, he can do damage with his bat, although he's been struggling recently, but he can do damage with his bat. His defense isn't very good, but he could do damage with his bat. Judge is one of those rare guys that can do both. He could hit well and field well. Urshela as well. He might... His fielding, he's one of the best third basemen in the MLB in terms of defense-wise. His fielding might be even better than his hitting, and his hitting is really good, but his fielding is even better. I mean, he's arguably the best defensive third baseman maybe outside of Nolan Arenado. I mean, the plays he makes, the IQ level that he plays at, he knows what he's going to do. I mean, I think twice he was a big part of those 2 out of 3 of those triple plays that they turned. Gary Sanchez just happens to be a better hitter than a defender. But like I said, if he continues to keep this up, if he continues to play well, and especially when we get out of the All-Star break, and we get into the July and August months, and especially when we get into September, when it really matters, when baseball and the wins, and you head down to the final 10, 15 games of the season, when it really counts most, if Gary Sanchez is hitting then and hitting well, that's really when you got to get real excited. But right now, he's on fire, and he's definitely making a relevant push to try to be an all-star. He is. He's making a push for it. I mean, it's going to take some more hits. I mean, he's going to have to go into the All-Star game, I think, at least batting like 255. I don't know if you're going to be able to go into the All-Star break batting 240. His overall stats are not great. That's because, like, the main stats. But when he's up against catchers, he's very good. But his overall stats could be better. But that's also because he started off the season so slow. So let's look at the numbers this season. He's batting .240, 13 home runs, which is tied 41st in the MLB, 29 RBIs, and an OPS of 847. I mean, it's crazy. I was looking at the numbers here. I can't believe it, but he's been with the Yankees now. This is his 7th season with the New York Yankees. 6th full, because in 2015 he only had two games played. He only had 2 at-bats. He didn't get a hit. 2016, he played 53 games. Realistically, his first season of over 100 games played was in 2017. So realistically, he's played 5 full seasons, and only 2 of them were kind of like half seasons. But still, he's 28 years old, which is crazy because I remember when he came up like 4 or 5 years ago. And I remember when he came up and he was really good, and he took that one guy. That's back when they had to do the intentional walk, and they had to pitch outside the guy. And one of the pitches, the guy kind of threw it a little bit over the plate, and he ended up swinging at it. I remember it was almost a home run. It hit on the warning track. The guy caught it, but it was a couple feet away from being a home run. But yeah, look at this season's number. He's played 56 games, 183 at-bats, 27 runs, 44 hits, 9 doubles, no triples. Sorry, I sneezed there. No triples. I mean, that's not surprising, though, because he does not hit many triples, and he's not very quick. Another thing with him is he's not very quick, so triples are going to be hard to come by for him. Triples are hard to come by in any MLB. In anybody for the MLB. Some of the quicker guys out there, you could see a triple, but even like yesterday with Judge, right? He was a triple side of the cycle. He hits a triple, he gets the cycle, right? But the thing is getting a triple. I would even argue to say that getting a triple is harder than getting a home run, because triple, you really got to use your legs. Triple, you also got to hope that the defense, you don't got an arm out there in the outfield that's really solid. Another thing here was let's see. So he's had 13 home runs this season, 29 RBIs, 26 walks, 3 hit by pitches. He's had 57 strikeouts, and then he's batting .240 overall. His on-base percentage is 344, which is actually very good. That's the highest on-base percentage Actually, the third highest. But his career is .323 on base percentage. So this season, he's above his season average, which is really good. His season average is .237. So he's actually above his season average for on base percentage is .323. He's above that. On base percentage is a very important stat to me. I know a lot of people don't pay attention on base percentage. All they're going to look at is the batting average, and they're going to look at the slugging, and they're going to look at, all the other stuff and the walks and all that stuff. People tend to not look at the on base percentage. I really think on base percentage is huge, because if you might be only batting like .250, but if your on base percentage is up in the 360s, 370s, in this case 340s, that means that you're drawing walks. That means that you're still getting on base. That means that you're still putting the ball in play. Yes, you might not be the best hitter, but it means that usually if your on base percentage is high, that usually means your strikeouts are down, because that means you're drawing more walks. That means you're getting on base a lot more. Yes, your batting average might not be as high, but when you're getting your opportunity to get on base, you're taking advantage of that opportunity, which I think is big for Gary Sanchez, because this has been a guy his past couple years, he's been known for his strikeouts. And this season, he's been able to be relatively better with those strikeouts and be able to go out and, draw more walks, look at pitches that are balls, swing at strikes, look at balls, that old saying, swing at balls or swing at strikes, look at balls, right? That same thing here with Sanchez, right? It's a guy that I'm noticing with his on-base percentage, he's just much more confident up there. And like I said, it's the simplest change. They didn't change his stance, right? They didn't change the way his batting stance. They didn't change the way he held his bat. They didn't change his swing. You know what they did? They made the most simplest adjustment ever. And I've said it now again. Right, in the middle of the season, it's hard enough to make adjustment. The adjustment does not need to be changing your batting stance. The adjustment does not need to be your swing. The adjustment does not need to be open or closed stance. The adjustment does not need to always be all these big things. Sometimes the adjustment could be the simplest thing ever. He went from a big leg kick to a small leg kick. Yes, that's hard to do because you get into the habit of it, but it's a small change. I mean, some of these other people out there were like, "Oh, what are we going to do with him? I mean, should he completely change his stance?" No, you're not going to do that. What you should do is make a little adjustment. They saw the little adjustment. He's made that little adjustment. It's not even a leg kick anymore. It is literally a tap. He lifts his foot up and puts it back down. That's his leg kick. That's literally it. It's no longer. It's literally a tap. He lifts it up, puts it back down. Lifts it up, puts it back down. It's not even, he used to take a big leg kick and then swing. That's not the case anymore. He doesn't do that anymore. And it's showing because the results are much better. And, we head into this Boston series with not just Sanchez hitting, but the first 5 guys of that lineup hitting. Things are finally starting to look up and finally starting to look like the New York Yankees we were expecting to see. We're 40-34 right now. We got our 40th win yesterday. We took 2 out of 3 from the Kansas City, and now we head on over to Boston. And tonight's a big night. And I'm telling you what, if Sanchez does well against Boston, if we sweep Boston, and Sanchez continues to hit well, he's going to be the talk of the town for the next week. I don't care how he does that next week. If we go into Boston, sweep Boston, and Sanchez comes out of there with like 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, and he's dominating the series, you're going to come out of this. And I said in New York sports, because Sanchez actually said something the other day after Wednesday's game. He says it's awesome when the Yankees fans cheer. He said it would be great if they could still get behind you when you're struggling. And he couldn't even be more realistic with what he said there, because it's the truth, right? New York sports, it's the truth. When you're doing well, and I've mentioned this so many times, when you're doing well, you're the talk of the town. You feel like you're on top of the world. You literally feel like you're the biggest athlete in the world. Gary Sanchez must be feeling that right now. I mean, he's the talk of the town. He's on the back page of the New York Post newspaper articles. He's all over the place now. He's the talk of the town. Now, the Islanders are also taking a little bit of his fame, but if the Islanders Once the hockey season's done, if Gary Sanchez continues to play like this, he'll do well. That's what I'm saying, though. Is New York sports, that's how it is. When you're not doing well, you don't even want to show your face in public. When you're doing well, it feels like you're the talk of the town. It feels like you're on top of the world. It feels like everyone's talking about you. So Gary Sanchez is going through that right now. That's how New York sports is. Not just Yankee fans. That's how New York sports is. That's why being a franchise quarterback in New York is so hard. That's why being a big-name pitcher in New York and succeeding is so hard. That's why being a coach in New York is so hard. You lose 1 or 2 games, people are all of a sudden going to start hating on you, even if it's 3, even if you get swept. If you're the best, if the Yankees were the best team in the MLB and they got swept by the Royals, you would still hear all these people fire this guy, get rid of this guy. So, Gary Sanchez right now is playing real well, and he's heating up at the right time. Before the All-Star break, then you come after the All-Star break. The Yankees are heating up. You head into Boston. The Yankees as a whole are heating up at just the right time. Some big series is coming up. Tonight against Boston. Tonight, Saturday, Sunday against Boston. A 3-game set for the weekend. Then you come back home 4 against the Angels. Then 3 next 4th of July weekend against the Mets. So, big series is coming up for the Yankees. Gary Sanchez is getting hot at the right time. And hey, let's see if the New York Yankees can continue their hot streak tonight. Alright, so that's what I got for Gary Sanchez and his success recently. He's been playing real well. Anyway, coming up here, I wanted to get into the Montreal Canadiens. They have moved on, and the Montreal Canadiens are moving on. They will be headed to the winner of Tampa Bay versus Islanders. I believe here the Islanders... So they would still, no matter what happens, they're playing home. No matter what happens, they will play home against the Islanders. Or play away, I'm sorry. Actually, no. If the Islanders win tonight, I think the Islanders would also be home. So I don't think, no matter what, I think they're still on the road. Because the Islanders were better in the regular season in Montreal, and Tampa's obviously higher seed. So, talk about underdog. They're still playing on the road. The first game of the NHL Stanley Cup for them, whether that's in Tampa or against the Islanders, they will that will be at home. So, or they will be on the road. So, but anyway, coming up next, we're gonna get into the Canadiens and their big move to the Stanley Cup, and they're continuing to move on as they head to the Stanley Cup. We'll talk about that coming up next. Alrighty, so the Montreal Canadiens have moved on here to the Stanley Cup. And if I can find my NHL Power Rankings, I would love to find my NHL Power Rankings right now. I probably can't. Because there's so many papers. Oh, found them. Found my NHL Power Rankings. I'm gonna do what needs to be done here, because I was wrong about a lot of these teams here. I actually wasn't that wrong, to be honest, with a lot of these teams. But, yeah, I did not. I'm just letting you know. And then with my postseason bracket as well, okay? I always, like I said, I admit when I'm wrong. I admit when I'm right. I do, sometimes will tap myself on the back when I get a prediction right. I do admit when I'm wrong, too. Right now, I was wrong about this. I can also guarantee you that mainly half the MLB, mainly half the NHL fans were wrong about this. Actually, I have an app called Bleacher Report, and there was a thing on it. They do polls, and there'll be questions about, where should this guy go, or who, if this team going to make the playoffs, what do you think about this guy, which rookie's going to do this and that, and you could press on the guy and the poll. So, there was a poll today. I could probably get up the voting maybe later on the podcast. If I have time, I really want to get to them. But there was the poll, and the poll was like, how many people did you expect the Canadiens to make the Stanley Cup? And one of the options was no, absolutely not, and yes. And I put absolutely not. And over like 80% of people put absolutely not. So I got to admit, I'm glad that I'm not alone because I think over 90% of the NHL fans did not expect the Montreal Canadiens to even make the playoffs this year, and number two, expect them to get to the Stanley Cup and knock off teams like the Maple Leafs and knock off a team like the Vegas Golden Knights and knock off the Winnipeg Jets, who seemed like they were getting on a roll after they beat the Oilers, and it's crazy. So I did not have them in my power rankings at all. Although my power rankings for the NHL actually came out relatively good. Lightning, Avalanche, Knights, Capitals, Leafs, Blues, Bruins, Stars, Penguins, and I had the Islanders and Flyers there. Islanders, I said, were number 11. Flyers, I put at number 10. It could have went either way. So, to be honest, my NHL power rankings actually went relatively well. Lightning made the playoffs. Avalanche are in. Knights were in. Capitals, Leafs, Blues, Bruins, Stars didn't. Penguins did. So, relatively were decent. My actually power rankings for the NHL season was actually pretty good. And I promised the end of the year I'll pull these out. There's a good chance the Lightning, I put them at number 1. There's a good chance they end the season Stanley Cup champions. So that I would really get that correct there. They obviously played tonight. But yeah, so it's wild that they are moving on. But the Montreal Canadiens are in fact moving on to the next round with a Game 6 win last night over the Vegas Golden Knights, 3-2. And it's just wild because this was a team, and this is a pure example of a Cinderella story, right? This was a team at the beginning of the season that, was still going through a rebuild. Obviously Carey Price, everyone thought that he might have been towards the tail end of his career. He didn't have a bad season, but, still getting older. And then you get guys like Shea Weber, who's getting up there in age. And you got some of the other guys on the roster. And you start to look at it and you're like, okay, this team's got some real good names in it that's been here for a long time. But, you just don't know. It looks like rebuild might be in sight here. And sure enough, the Montreal Canadiens go out and they make the Stanley Cup. And Cinderella stories a lot of times don't happen by one guy. They don't happen by two guys. It's not, here's my Nets reference, it's not a big three type guys. A Cinderella story usually happens from every guy putting 110% effort out there each and every night. And that's what the Canadiens are doing. Yes, Carey Price has been arguably the best goaltender in the entire NHL playoffs. He's been dominant. Yes, Shea Weber is the captain. He's leading the way. Yes, Tyler Toffoli leads the team in points and goals and assists in the 2021 postseason. Right? Yes, I get that. And yes, Nick Suzuki as well has been very good. And I get it. Jeff Petrie, who's one of your top guys this season, has only had 5 points, which he had a better year, but still a threat on the ice. And yes, Shea Weber only had 4 points. But all together, this team is putting out there a team effort. Everyone always talks about teamwork. Everyone always talks about team victories and team goals and team wins. That's what the Montreal Canadiens are doing. It's not one guy. It's not another guy. It's the entire team coming together and playing 60 full minutes of NHL hockey. And last night, it went into overtime. So you know what they did? They played 60-plus minutes of hockey. This is a team that has worked together. This is a team that throughout the season, they were battling for a playoff spot. They were They were just They weren't great. They were not bad. They were They were a team that when they squeaked in the playoffs coming out of the North Division, they were kind of one of those teams like, they just barely got in. And now look, they're going to the Stanley Cup. And they knocked off a team like the Vegas Golden Knights. And I think that's big because not only are they playing well together as a team, I think it just goes to show you how good they've been on the defense side of the puck. They've shut down some of the top scorers for the Vegas Golden Knights. They shut down Mark Stone. They shut down Pietrangelo. They shut down Carlson. And let alone, they made the Vegas Golden Knights have a little bit of a goalie issue. With that Game 5 win, they won 4-1. They went back to Robin Lehner. Still, they got another win. I feel like the Canadiens didn't. In a way, I feel like the Canadiens did so good that they more so forced the Vegas into a loss than them winning. That might make no sense, but I mean like making them change their goalie mid-series. making them change some of their game plan, shutting down their top goal scorers, their top forwards. Yes, Canadiens won the series, but they forced Vegas into a whole lot of mistakes, a whole lot of decision-making, and at the end of the day, the goalie was the big conversation. Marc-Andre Fleury, who was dominant throughout the playoffs, just struggled this series. But like I said, I think that's because this Canadian team continued to play hard. And that's another thing I think with this Canadiens team that's so special is, right, when you're the underdog, right, whenever you get a win, you don't take things for granted in a way. When you're an underdog, you get a win, you're going to be focused on the next matchup. That's what I believe that the Canadiens are kind of doing here. They're kind of like, they're not looking ahead. They realize that, they realize that they're the underdog. They do. I mean, you look at the roster, you look at the talent compared to these other teams, you look at the roster and you look at how they did in the regular season, they're clearly an underdog. That's why they came in as a 4 seed. I'm not trying to be negative, but it's the truth. They realize they're an underdog. Going into the series, they were an underdog. Going into the Jets series, they were an underdog. Going to the Maple Leaf series, they were an underdog. Going into the playoffs, they were an underdog. And I feel like in a way that might help them a little bit because they, a lot of times when teams get wins or some really good teams go up maybe 2-1 or 3-1 in a series, they all get all cocky and they start to get real confident. And then they all of a sudden blow the series. And I feel like that's kind of in a way what happened to Vegas. They got confident going into the series. They felt, this should be, I feel like we should get this win. We should get this series win. And sure enough, that wasn't the case. I feel like Vegas went into the series with a little too much confidence. And Canadiens went into the series with the main thing, taking game by game by game by game. And another thing with Vegas going into the series is they got off beating the Avalanche. They got off, weren't they down 2-0 against the Avalanche and then they came back and won 4 straight? You know how big that was for them? And then now to move on and go up against Canadiens who are heavy underdogs and Vegas obviously really talented, just getting off of beating Colorado, and then you come out like this and you lose. And Montreal continues to go out, play hard as a team. Carey Price continues just to be dominant. I mean, it's just playoff hockey for him. He's been dominant. And yet again, they're taking it game by game by game. Game 1, Game 2, Game 3, Game 4, Game 5, Game 6. They move on to the Stanley Cup. And they will play tonight the winner of the not the Montreal Canadiens. They will play the winner tonight of the Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Islanders. So that's obviously big. We'll see how all that plays out. That should be a very good game tonight. Okay, so here's the poll. So did you have the Canadiens in a cup? Cast your vote now. No had 30%. Of course had 14.7%. And definitely not at 55.3%. So I was a little off there with 80%. But still, over half the people didn't. And, yeah, I was looking for the stat here. Because there was this crazy stat. I can't find it. Okay, there was this stat about how many shots they let up in the series and how many goals there were for certain players. Oh, here it is. Okay, so the Golden Knights, this was their top players, like I mentioned. In the series, this was the entire series. Mark Stone, 7 shots on goal, 0 goals. Max Pacioretty, 21 shots, 1 goal. Jonathan Marchessault, 8 shots, no goals. William Karlsson, 11 shots, no goals. Alex Tuck, 13 shots, no goals. Out of your 5 biggest scorers, they had 1 goal. 1 goal. Out of your 5 biggest forwards, they had 1 goal on 60 shots in a 6-game series. 60 shots, 1 goal. That is terrible. That just goes to show you how good defense the Canadiens are playing and how good Carey Price is. Because he stopped a lot of really good looks from the Vegas Golden Knights and stopped them from a couple really, really, really good players. So, a big win last night for them, and they will now move on. All right, so let's get into the New York Sports Update here, and we'll finish off this podcast here on this Friday. As for in the NBA, Clippers won 106-21, or 106-21, 106-92. As they move up, they move 2-1 in the series. One thing about the Clippers, I said it, I thought they were going to win. They've just been a good home team all series. They get down 2-0, then they go home and win. I mean, it's just how it is. That wasn't how it is in the Mavericks series, but still. Bucks-Hawks, give me the Hawks. Give me the Hawks tonight. Give me the Hawks. As for in the NHL, like I mentioned, Canadiens won 3-2, so they move on to the Stanley Cup. And tonight's it. Islanders Lightning tonight. Series tied 3-3. 8 p.m. Eastern Time on NBCSN. 50-50. Literally 50% of people think the Lightning will win. 50% of people think the Islanders will win. It's 50-50. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. Give me the Isles. And then they'll win. And looks like they'll move on. All right, so today we got yesterday the Cubs won 4-0. Cubs have a combined no-hitter against the Dodgers. So the Cubs won 4-0. Pirates won, Indians won, Cheaters won, Nationals won, Reds won, Rays won, Blue Jays won, and A's won. Yankees won yesterday 8-1. We moved to 40-34 on the season. And big win yesterday for the Yankees. Gary Sanchez continues his hot streak. Went 2 for 5 with 3 RBIs, 2 runs scored. He obviously had a home run. And Voit also added on with a home run. Stan with a 3-hit game. Stan's had a real good season. I know a lot of Yankee fans hate him, but he's not getting enough credit. He has had a very good season. He's batting .271, .360 on base percentage, .503 slugging percentage, and an OPS of .862. His OPS is, second highest on the team? Only behind Judge. That's one thing. Yankee fans hate Stanton. I don't. I've always liked Stan. But, give him some credit. Give him some credit. He's batting .271, .360 on base percentage, .404 slugging, and .862, or .503 slugging, rather, .862 OPS. And he, like I said, his on-base percentage much higher because he's getting walks. He's not striking out as much. Yesterday he went, He went 3 for 5 with an RBI. He's so much better this season. I don't know. So many people hate him so much, even if he would. You got to at least consider him for the All-Star game. I'm not even joking. You've got to. If you're considering Gary Sanchez, you've got to consider Giancarlo Stanton. You've got to. For a DH. All right, so as for today, we got the Mets, Phillies. I'll get into that game. Brewers, Rockies. I'll give Brewers the win. Blue Jays, Orioles. Give Blue Jays the win. Rays, Angels. Give Rays the win. Cheaters, Tigers. Give Cheaters the win. Reds, Braves. Give Reds the win. Marlins, Nationals. Give Marlins the win. Rangers, Royals. Give Rangers the win. Twins, Indians. Give Twins the win. White Sox, Mariners. Give White Sox the win. Cardinals, Pirates. Give Cardinals the win. Giants, A's. Give Giants the win. Dodgers, Cubs. Give Dodgers the win. Padres, Diamondbacks. Give Padres the win. I think the Mets split. I think the Mets will win game 1, lose game 2. It's usually how it is. Yankees also play today. Yankees come in this game 40-34. Red Sox come in this game 44-31. This game goes on today, 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time on MLB Network. Yankees got Domingo Germán on the mound. He's 4-4 with a 4.17 ERA. And the Red Sox have got Perez on the mound. He's 5-4 with a 4.32 ERA. Over under is 10.5. And 58% of people say the Yankees win. They're hot. Give me the Yankees to win. And after that, I do fantasy. I wanted to read you that Sanchez stat that I found. It's wild. It's just been how good he's been. All right, so currently losing 205 to 156 in fantasy baseball. But today I've got going Yadier Molina, Luke Voit, Whit Merrifield, Austin Riley, Marcus Semien, Carlos Correa, Matt Olson, Austin Meadows, Dylan Carlson, Manuel Margot, Avisail Garcia, Josh Ross, and J.P. Crawford. And no one's on the mound today. All right, so this is the crazy Gary Sanchez stat I was talking about. It just goes to show you how good he's been in the past couple games. If I can find it. I think it was here. All right, let's see. Okay, so Gary has been scary is his title. 11 of his last 18 hits have been for extra bases. Last 15 games, Gary Sanchez, batting average of .346, 18 hits, 7 home runs, 16 RBIs, and look at this, 1.195 OPS. He's at over 1,000 OPS in his last 15 games. And that's a 15-game stretch. That's not like a 5-game stretch. That's a 15-game stretch. Some people might have like a 5,000 OPS, might have a 1 billion OPS across 3 games. But that's a 15-game stretch that he's continuing to put up these numbers. And, it's just crazy. And, he's just been so good recently. And it makes me so happy because it's another powerful bat that's coming alive in the lineup. And the Yankees as a whole right now are coming alive. And it's great to see. And I'm happy about it. And now we head to Boston for a big series here today. Starting today, a weekend series against the Red Sox. So, obviously, a very packed weekend ahead of us in sports. And should be exciting like always. Obviously, I'm always ready for sports this weekend. I got so many papers over here. I got to clean this up. I still got my March Madness bracket over here. Obviously, always big weekends in sports recently overall. It's been big weekends. Sports, obviously, it's great to have, everything back to normal really in sports with, full capacity and fans and just sports back in general. Just think this time last year, we didn't have baseball on. Basketball was coming back relatively coming back eventually. They were still deciding on, what they were going to do. And then you had baseball that was going back and forth with what to do. And then you had, obviously, basketball and hockey, getting their bubbles ready. So it was pretty wild. But definitely crazy how, sports are back and everything's back to normal, really, in the sports world in terms of, fans and regular play, full schedules for at least baseball. Basketball will be full next season. Hockey will be full next season. But, with the full schedule for the baseball and, it's great to see. But anyway, that will do it for the podcast today, and that will do it for the week. As always, you all know I take breaks on the weekends. So I take off on the weekends. So I will see you all back here on Monday. Everybody enjoy your weekend, and I will see you all back here on Monday. Hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for watching.